Hello and welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week, with me as your host, Chris, well behind McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80, and joining me for this episode is Brian, nice behind Hickey. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we look at issue number 276 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. So without further ado, let's get stuck in, shall we? Untold Tales Part 1. An all-new arc kicks off as living legend Larry Hama reveals never-before-seen adventures of the heroes and villains of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero universe. In this issue, Larry joins superstar artist Nito Diaz to tell the tale of Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Stalker and Torpedo on a desperate mission in Trucial Abysmia to rescue Americans held hostage in a secret prison. But what happens when one of the prisoners turns out to be someone they know? And actually going into the comics intro, we have Untold Tales Part 1. Join living legend Larry Hama and his team of superstar artists as they reveal never-before-seen adventures featuring the heroes and villains of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero universe. Probably didn't need to do that, but I've done it anyway now. Roll call: Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Stalker, Torpedo, Wild Bill, Lift Ticket, Roadblock and Scoop. With writer Larry Hama, artist Nito Diaz, inks Jagdish Kumar, colours Jay Brown, letters Neil Iyatake, senior editor Tom Walsh, editor Megan Brown and research assistant Diana Davis. Right, now that all that's out of the way, Brian, let's get into the covers on this one, starting with cover A. What are your thoughts on this Nito Diaz classic?
I mean, it's a killer cover, you know. I mean, Nito's work, it's always... he always brings the heat, and this is a great cover. I mean, totally ties in with all the action that's going on in this particular issue, brings in all the characters, and we've got our Joes kind of diving into the thick of it. It just, all out action, looks super. Love it.
Yeah, it's a really good, vibrant, like aggressive cover. I really like it. It's that kind of sweeping from one side of the page to the other, and you've got Stalker in the foreground, like unleashing is at M16, and then you've got Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Torpedo kind of like jumping through all the windows, and as always Snake Eyes is airborne and Scarlet's doing a good impression of him as well, which is pretty cool.
Love it.
That's a beauty. That's Nito Diaz and Tom B. Lang on colours, and actually I think this was one of my favourite covers of last year when we did our top threes, so yeah, really enjoyed that. Kind of snuck in right at the last minute. Moving on to cover B then, this is the artist Brian Shearer, who is actually on the next issue, Interiors as well, but let's have a look at his cover here. What do you think of this one, Brian?
It's a great cover as well. I mean, it doesn't maybe have the same level of kind of, high tension action that you've got on, with Nito's cover, but and this is the variant B is what I have in my hand. It's we see the same Joe characters, so Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Stalker and Torpedo, and they're clearly taken aback or surprised by they're confronting somebody who's shackled, and they seem a little bit just shocked by what they're seeing. So they're not on a full out attack here. I think it's a great cover from Brian Shearer. He always brings, again like Nito, he always brings the heat, but in a totally different kind of style.
Yeah.
And this is another great cover to get.
Absolutely, love the colours on this one as well. Really, really nice overall cover. That one, like it. Then we've got obviously we've got this is another good one. This is art by John Royal, inks Jagdish Kumar,
for this one.
Colours James Afraidy. Finally, we've got characters that are involved though, but it's just none of this happens in the issue, which again it's funny, but at least we've got characters that relate to what's going on inside now.
Yeah, this is, we actually have the team, we've got Torpedo up front, we've got Snake Eyes, we've got Scarlet. It looks at first glance like, Jesus, he's actually done something from the actual story, but when you look a bit closer, you realise they're out at sea, or coming in from the sea, and certainly our particular story in this issue seems to take place well inland, so there's no kind of water at all for the Joe team. But I think John Royal, definitely props to him for actually looking at the script a little bit. He must have at least read the roll call.
Honestly, I don't think it's his fault. I think they come to him and they say, "Oh, this is all we've got," or "This is what we want," and then go nuts, kind of thing. I don't think he is privy to what is actually going to be happening, because as well, I kind of feel like these issues like get wrapped up quite quickly, and like late on, there's a little bit of last minute kind of to a lot of these comics, and I think he does a lot of his covers well in advance, as do a lot of them, a lot of the artists on here. So I don't think it's 100% his fault on that front.
I know. I mean, I kid because I love, it could well be, as you say, it's a first draft, or it's not even a draft, it's a synopsis or something like that, flies his direction. But I still honestly think most of the time it's just, John, we need something cool. We don't know what's going on yet, but just something cool for the retailers.
So that's a banger. And then we have two covers here, which are quite interesting for me, because I was a big Wu-Tang fan as a kid growing up, especially in like the college years. And I remember Wu-Tang Forever's album cover came out. And so the 616 Comics and Simple Man's Comics exclusive variant covers are related to that. So they've done a Wu-Tang Forever cover, but they've replaced the Wu-Tang members with Cobra characters, and it's called Cobra Forever, and you've got the globe with the Cobra sigil inside instead of the Wu-Tang symbol. You've got that kind of Instagram filter, like the sepia tone, like Earth in the background, the planet. And then there's obviously the other version of that. There's like the one direct cover recreation, and then there's like almost a CD version on a table surrounded by like, bloodied blades and bullets and grenades and stuff like that on a table which has clearly got a Cobra sign on it. I mean, what do you think of those two? Because I mean, I quite like them just for the the Wu-Tang connection, but were you aware of that at all?
Well, I didn't get the Wu-Tang connection, but I will say these are brilliant.
Yeah.
And such a refreshing break from the usual porn star covers that we get for the weird exclusive variant A's and B's. But
so true.
I think this is a real creative bit of creative fun, really brilliantly executed, and top class work was it Hal Larron?
Hal Larron, yes. Good point. Actually, he's the actual artist on it. I've kind of gave you the actual exclusive vendors involved, but yeah, not the actual artist. But yeah, I really like that. I think the second one I even like even better, just because it's in the CD. And if you look at like the CD case, there's so much detail in like, if you just look at the bottom of that CD case, and you can see like almost like the details of where the inlay cover would fold up, and like all the different bits and pieces that you would see on it. It's just really well done. It's all brilliant.
The plastic kind of ridges and stuff. It's just it's super.
It's like looking at a photo of it. It's really cool. So yeah, really
Larron,
into that.
Fair play to you, Hal Larron. No porn stars and some really great creative artwork. Top quality work.
Absolutely,
I love it.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the actual issue then now, because we start in northern Trucial Abysmia, not Northal, northern Trucial Abysmia, and we're basically given this opening shot, beautiful opening shot of the Tomahawk / Eaglehawk flying through with Wild Bill and Lift Ticket in the pilot and co-pilot seats, and then we see like a glimpse into what's going on in the back of the Tomahawk and the like further on the page, and you've got a camera showing Stalker, Torpedo, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet.
So, I mean, great opening page, and as I say, we've got our crew, our core team for this mission. They're all in the frame, and Stalker is talking to whoever's behind the camera, which is Scoop, and inviting him into the shot as well. And even Roadblock makes an appearance and offers to hold the camera so Scoop can get in, obviously reinforcing that Scoop is just as important a member of the team as the four characters are going to carry out the extraction, which is what their mission is.
This does remind me, there was a special missions a long time ago in the Marvel run where Scoop was introduced, and he ends up being on a he's thrown into this mission where he goes along with like Hit and Run and I think Tunnel Rat and a couple of the other guys, and they're on the Tomahawk, and they're going through the kind of we're going to need this going through all of like the little tips and tricks of what they're going to need, because Scoop is kind of a bit bumbling, he's a bit fresh, he's not necessarily a soldier, he's he's got to prove himself and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of reminds me of the way we were introduced to Scoop back in the Marvel run. We're kind of introduced to Scoop in this sense, in a very similar way.
I like that nice mirroring from the the old kind of earlier run and this is it's super nice touch by Larry.
Big time. And I love how we get the explanation of what they're actually doing here. So there's like this mission where they're looking to snatch, is it Alpheus Hunzucker, I think his name is, the Swiss weapons tech. who set up Trucial Abysmia's poison gas labs, etc., etc., etc. So he's kind of like a big deal, and they're going in there basically to grab him. And it's going to be Scarlet and Snake Eyes that are going to do that job, and the rest of the team are going to be there for backup. So that's kind of what we're led into, isn't it?
And obviously, Scarlet has she's passing around a photograph of Hunzucker
Yeah.
to basically say, look, if Snake Eyes and myself are compromised, you guys memorize this face because basically you're going to have to get him if we don't make it out with him.
Absolutely.
So and in the photograph we see Hunzucker. He's pointing at some sort of like rocket. He seems to have somebody that he's talking to, somebody or addressing somebody. It's not really clear who that is. There's no explanation, but I wonder, is it someone that we see later in the story?
Very possibly, yeah.
As we get through it. So I actually, the next page, I love this, where we actually have the drop. We have the, Wild Bill and Lift Ticket let them know, look, we're not actually going to put, touchdown on the ground. You've got to jump first. And the team bail out. I love how they have all, Nito's drawn all the dust kind of swooping up from the blades of the helicopter.
It's great artwork.
And then they just
fantastic artwork, as
calm
always.
when they're all lying there on the ground and the helicopter flies off, and they're just kind of waiting for 5 minutes to make sure that there's no sign of any kind of enemy activity.
Yeah, and then as they're kind of like talking to each other in hushed voices and everything, they're supposed to be meeting up their indigenous resistance fighters. And they eventually do stumble across them. Snake Eyes tells everyone, hey, hold up, these rocks are moving up ahead. He doesn't tell them that. He just tells them to hold up with the sign. And Scarlet fills everyone else in. And that's always the way, isn't it? And then the rocks move, and up pop the resistance fighters in this kind of like rock camouflage, which is actually really cool. And it reminds me of the Masters of the Universe Rock-On and Stone-Dar figures, who were like they were almost like transformed into, well, they transformed into rocks, but they were Masters of the Universe figures, and obviously Rock Lords. But I feel like this is more Rock-On and Stone-Dar territory, the way that they're all kind of like plated up and everything. It looks really cool.
No, I thought that was a really nice touch. And again, as I was reading this, it was like I was thinking to myself, where's where's their contact that they're supposed to meet up with? And I was surprised, with the whole rock thing and them coming out of the rocks. And of course, it's all brilliantly illustrated, and they've got all this kind of dust and debris, floating around them. It's a really nice touch by Larry and brilliantly illustrated by Nito.
We then see that one of the fighters is not very happy to have her face on camera, so Scoop is kind of getting a little bit annoyed at being told he can't do his job, which again is like it's funny. No one wants him to do his job. He's there to like make sure. In fact, something that's said at the beginning, which was quite interesting, that we kind of skipped over, is Stalker's talking, and he mentions a Records Division fire at Fort Leonard Wood back in the 70s. In basically the DOD bean counters want full documentation until everything goes south. Then they have a convenient fire like the one at etc. etc. etc.
Oh yeah.
And I checked up on that, and I found the only thing I could find was, so Fort Leonard Wood is in St. Louis, Missouri. And there was a records department that went up in like 1973 that had all of the military records in. It's like 2.25 hour drive from Leonard Wood. So it must be that Larry's referencing. In 1973, big fire, biggest like document fire of all time, apparently, like in terms of military history, that took out loads of information and documents and stuff like that. So I think that's what Larry's referring to. I couldn't find if it was like a scandal, like if it was done on purpose, or whether that was just like a funny thing that he's mentioning in there, as if like, here's a bit of inside intel kind of thing. But I just thought that was
clearly suggesting that it was deliberate.
That's the only. I mean, I didn't research it very quickly. I just found out where that fire happened and et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was quite an interesting little thing to add in there by Larry. And again, like, loads, again, great detail thrown in there, but you don't even realise the amount of detail he puts into this stuff. It's magnificent. And anyway, as they're moving through, these resistance fighters basically take them to this BTR, this kind of like, it's like an APC. It looks very much like an APC. That the elite guards kind of track them down in. Now, these resistance fighters killed these two resistance fighters, I believe, killed all of the elite guards that had been sent out to get them, and they just left the bodies strewn around as they drive off. And I think it's kind of like, wow, it's quite. Again, we're getting into the brutal with Neitho and Larry, aren't we? They seem to bring out the most brutal elements of each other when they work together.
Well, Larry, I know there was another special missions there a little while back, or maybe special missions isn't the right
Yeah,
name for
one of
it.
those like
But
one-off kind
we
of
had
one
a
shots.
Baroness story where
Yeah,
they were, again, working with kind of, local resistance fighters. And the local resistance tends to be pretty badass,
yeah.
So again, true to form here, these guys are fairly formidable that the Joes have teamed up with. They're a good match for the skill that the Joes bring to the mix, and they're certainly well able to look after themselves.
What do you think of that BTR they're driving? Do you think very APC, ATC kind of vibes?
Totally. Absolutely. I was thinking the Z Force ATC when I saw that.
When they first started talking about elite guards, I had a feeling they were talking about the October Guard until I saw all the bodies strewn around, and I thought it was because they had like an APC very similar to this. I'll flash an image of it. Like they had a few vehicles, but there was an APC in there once for the October Guard. And that was in my mind. I thought, oh, is he kind of like tying in the October Guard into this as well in some way, shape, or form? But I don't think that's the case. I think they're just elite guard of the guys, protecting this particular facility. And also, I just love the fact that it does look very much like the APC, even though it's got one extra wheel on either side.
Yeah.
Anyway, they kind of make it, in their vehicle. They make it to this facility. They're staking it out for a while, and then they decide that Snake Eyes and Scarlet, Scoop, and one of the resistance fighters are going to go in and attempt this snatch as they think that's what they're going to do anyway. That's what the Joes think is going to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is a great little setup here with Neato. We get this sort of wide angle view of the whole facility. We have the extraction team in the foreground, and then we see, very, very far away in the distance, we see these tiny little specks, which we presume are the infiltration team heading in to, being led by one of the local. I want to get
Zara, I think her name is.
Zara. That's what it is. So Zara's kind of leading them in, and a really nice touch here. Snake Eyes uses the hydraulic jack from the ATC or the VTR to prise open the bars on a sewer. Brilliant technique and brilliant improvisation by Snake Eyes.
Yeah, neat that.
Giving them entry into the base, which is super.
Really cool. And they go in, and this is where we see how hardcore Zara is. She kind of disappears up ahead and kind of leaves them be, takes a knife out because she's going to do everything like silently. And they bump into one of the guards in the sewer, and Snake Eyes prevents Scarlet from firing. And then the next thing you see is him just dropping into the sewer water, and there's Zara in the night vision of I suppose it is night vision camera of Scoops, and she's like, all clear now, follow me. It's like she is just utterly on a mission herself, like, just badass. She goes ahead and she takes out so many guards, and everyone's like really quite impressed with her. She's still begging Scoop not to take footage of her face, and then Snake Eyes kind of points up to this scaffold in the top of this big cooling tower, which he thinks that's where they need to go next.
So I mean, this is a great sequence. This is a lot of dead guards lying in Zara's wake, and clearly she's very uncomfortable about being kind of filmed, because the regime, and what she tells us, if they ever get hands on that footage, they'll use it as evidence to really up their kind of genocidal tactics against the locals. So she's clearly not too happy about being on camera. But Scarlet makes it very clear that, look, it's up to their job is to film, and it's going to be up to the head honchos to decide what they want to cut out of it or not if they ever decided to release it. But Snake Eyes interrupts this kind of debacle, and that's kind of pictured that or figured out that they need to head up this scaffolding, and sure enough, that's where they start heading. And in the meantime, we have Stalker and the other resistance fighter taking the VTR and impregnating the base. Infiltrating the base.
I believe her name is Aman. Aman and Zara, the two resistance fighters.
So Aman and Stalker infiltrate the base, disguised as members of the elite guard, and they're just coming back from their mission.
Yeah, so they get in quite comfortably and easily at the end of the day, which is quite funny. And meanwhile, we still see Zara being like ruthless. She's like looking for Hunzucker. You can tell she's on a mission now. There's something more to it than this that we can kind of like that we can determine now. She's got the knife on the guy, and Scarlet stops her from killing him, even though this guy does tell him where Hunzucker is. But Scarlet says, "You don't need to keep killing everybody. Just like, you know, he's a prisoner. We don't kill prisoners, etc., etc." And she says, "Well, you deal with him then." She tells Scoop to kind of gag him, and that's when this guy kind of elbows Scoop, goes for the gun, pulls that out of, goes to shoot, and then Scarlet takes the guy out with a shuriken, which is really awesome. And it's like Zara says, "I thought you said," and she said, "As soon as he picked up a weapon, he stopped being a prisoner." And it's just like Scarlet's also badass, you know. Like it's like, you know, let's not give all the badass to Zara in this issue. Let's have Scarlet take some as well.
I mean, that is actually pretty awesome where Scarlet reacts so quickly, and I mean that single panel with the shuriken in the head. I mean, it's fairly visceral, you know.
Yeah.
And even when she retracts it and there's blood dripping off the shuriken, I mean that they're not holding back on the violence in this one.
I will say I love the fact that Stalker calls them a snatch team. I have eyes on the snatch team. That's a bit sexist, Stalker. Zara is leading them into the cooling tower, as he says, and that's exactly what's happening while they're down below kind of checking on what's going on. And then this is where we kind of find a little bit more out, and Aman says to Stalker, "I hope Zara can restrain herself from cutting his throat on the spot." She explains that Hunzucker was in charge of the poison gas development program. He personally directed a test attack on Zara's village. Halab, that wiped out her whole family, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. She found the bodies herself. All of them had died in the extreme agony, choking on their own vomit. And that's where Stalker's like, "What? You should have told us, you know, what the hell's going on?" And Aman says she feels like she deserved her retribution and all this kind of stuff. So it's like the Joes are unwittingly now helping Zara get to her objective, which is to kill this guy, even though the Joes are there to capture him.
I mean, it's a complete mission compromise at this point, and only Stalker is the only Joe member who knows that that's the case. So he's obviously has no way of communicating with the Joe team. He can't advise Scarlet or Snake Eyes in any way. He's just going to have to sit tight and see what kind of unfolds, which, you know, brings us then inside the big kind of silo where all the scaffolding works and Hunzucker is there with some of his guards and immediately sees the infiltration team coming in, assumes immediately they're intruders or assassins, and a firefight ensues, and we see, and it's great to see it, Snake Eyes straight into action.
He gets up five levels of scaffolding like it's nothing. I love that. It's all very parkour. And it's amazing how even one of the guards who's firing at him is like, "How can you move that fast?" So it's like, you know, the legend of Snake Eyes, effectively.
I absolutely love that. You know, like we've had...
It's nice to see original Snake Eyes as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, Dawn is great. Throwdown is brilliant. We love them. But when you get back to the classics like this, I mean, it really is a breath of fresh air. And this is a great moment for Snake Eyes. But even when he gets up top, I mean, he's kind of flanked on both sides by guards. You know, he runs out of ammo in his kind of Uzi or his burp gun. And he has swords are straight out. I mean, he's getting straight into them. And of course, that gives Scarlet and Zara their chance to move in on Hunzucker and capture him.
I love the fact that when the other guys are climbing up the scaffolding, you know, to kind of catch up with Snake Eyes, who now has Hunzucker at sword point, you've got Scoop behind kind of going, "Oh man, this shot is beauty," and he's just kind of hanging on the scaffolding in, like, I suppose, like, relative safety, taking the footage, you know, of the guys on that kind of level. We have more guards turn up, so Snake Eyes has to turn and deal with them. In the meantime, Zara is running at Hunzucker to try and kill him. Scarlet realizes, "What are you doing?" and has to, like, "No, we need him alive." Then Hunzucker kind of grabs Scarlet across the neck, grabs, I think, a grenade off one of the dead guards, and he's kind of, it's a grenade, and then he pulls the pin out with his teeth, and he's kind of using that as like a hostage situation kind of thing, while Snake Eyes is on that one panel of him, like, just chopping, and there's blood spraying all over the place.
Oh, I know.
But the funny thing is, Scarlet actually just, like, easily gets out of the situation. Like, again, like, you're dealing with Scarlet here. He elbows him in the face, she gets out of the way, and then Zara decides, her ultimate retribution, not just to get rid of Hunzucker, but also to save the rest of the guys on that top level, is to grab him and jump over the edge, push him off, and then they both fall to their death as they explode at the bottom.
Self-sacrifice, boom. I mean, and in the thick of all of this, Hunzucker recognizes Zara and says, "You're that Halab girl who swore to cut my throat."
Yeah.
And you flash back to that photograph of Hunzucker, and I wonder, is that Zara, maybe as an employee within the facility, because obviously she wasn't killed when her village was gassed, so she clearly wasn't there. I wonder if that is meant to be Zara in that photo that the Joes are looking at right at the beginning of this mission.
Yeah, it could very well be.
Not said, but
Yeah, very cool. Good point, actually, to kind of swing back on as well. And then as the Joes kind of escape out of the building, they jump onto the BTR/APC, the BATPRC, and they get away. So that was the easy part. Now all we have to do is shoot our way out of Dodge. And then the next thing you see is Scarlet and Snake Eyes looking at each other, and she says, "Snake Eyes, promise me if something like that happens to me again, you won't do what Zara did. Promise me." And obviously we know fully well that he does do something like that, which is a lovely kind of little moment at the end of the issue. And
of course his silence is brilliant because he's clearly not making the promise.
Of course not.
That's a really nice ending to... And all that whole conversation happens in the thick of a firefight as they're blasting away at a Dodge on the top of a VTR. It's a great way to wrap up that mission.
This is one of this issue kind of reminds me of like special mission style kind of issue where you've got a small core, you've got a few kind of like different characters who haven't really been seen before, you've got your usual Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Roadblock and Stalker, but Scoop's like a new guy that we don't really get to see that often, so it's nice that he's thrown in. We've got a couple of Resistance fighters who are more than capable of that level of cool character quality. We've got like Death in it, we've got like this bad guy, this like evil bad guy. There's a facility that has to be infiltrated. There's a drop zone they have to get into. There's vehicles in it. It's just one of those issues that just like it ticks all the boxes for me. And it's like there's like a nice little twist in there. It's not like super groundbreaking, but it's just an enjoyable romp of an issue for me.
It's a simple story, well told, and one issue, action packed. And it's a breath of fresh air compared to the 10-issue Snake Hunt run that we had to. I don't want to say that we had to endure, because that makes it sound, it wasn't that bad.
No, it was fun. It was fun, but yeah, it
was fun. It had moments that were excellent and moments not so excellent. But this is great. There's no pressure.
Yeah,
it's just like, let's just tell a good story here in whatever 30 pages and have a bit of fun with it.
Brilliant.
And that's exactly what happened here. And it's a treat of a comic.
What would you give it in the potatings department?
Oh, well, I've got to go back to the 5s now, haven't I? I mean, I've been kind of bad-mouthing Snake Hunt for so long. I just feel like I owe Larry a few extra potatoes. Stick a 6 on there, right? Just for this one.
Amazing. I've got to find an extra potato. No, that's I'm on board with that. I think it was such a nice new kind of like bang straight in there, and it felt so special missions. Like Untold Tales, I feel, is just a new way of saying special missions, and I like that. And it's something that's nice because it gives us a flashback, it throws in another, and that's the thing, the G.I. Joe universe is so vast that we can have these little flashback mission kind of issues, and it doesn't affect what's come before or what goes afterwards because all of that has already happened. It's just nice to see some cool kind of missions that we haven't ever been privy to, and I love that. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'm also going to go with 5/6 for that one, Brian. Thank you very much. Anyway, dude, it's been fun. This was a great issue. We've got 277 next, which is like a Law and Order kind of issue, and I think Brian Shearer is on interiors on that one, so that should be a fun one to have a look at. Obviously, we've got Dead Game 2 and 3 to do still. Was there anything else we had on? Oh, and I suppose that's it. We're just waiting for the we're waiting for the Paul Aller Castle Fall as well, aren't we? Which isn't out yet. So hopefully by the time that's out, we should have caught up with all the other issues that we need to do.
Okay, we need to be. We just have to make that happen.
Anyway, mate, it's an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much for jumping on, pal.
Absolutely, my pleasure, buddy. Take care.
That's it for this instalment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Brian Hickey. See you next time, and as always,
Full Force.
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter at The Full Force, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, located at 601 Business Loop 70 West Suite 263, located in the Parkade Center, Columbia, Missouri. You can visit their website at distantplanetcomics.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Distant Planet Comics.